above all. His work has taken him to 25 countries, from one end of the world to the other. Most recently, Nick has served as a cinematographer and dramatised documentary series The Black Hand, as well as feature documentary Joe, Last King of Queensland. For Chris Stender's Red Dog, Danger Close. Nick has also contributed second unit work for Mark Ware and ACS on ABC's forthcoming series Fortitude Valley, and for John Stokes' ACS Darby and Jones Series 1. There's more. Check it out. Thank you, team. I just thought we might just do a quick one for those that don't know. How would you describe the job of a DOP/cinematographer? What is it? I think it's varied, but how would you each individually describe it?
I'd say it's a chameleon. I'd say that my approach to a project has always been about understanding what the director wants from me. Every director has a different weight of what they'll put on each of the requirements they've interviewed. Some will be very visual, some will be very story, and some will be somewhere in between, and you need to be able to change whatever you do to accomplish that photographically.
Yeah, I mean, DOP is obviously the head of the camera department, which is quite a big responsibility. And I mean, from ultimately DOPs really sort of bring a lot to the picture as far as visually, of course, and creatively as far as, that's the way I look at it, is that DPs really, add a lot to the whole film and everything visually. So yeah, that's the big contribution, I think.
I think in addition to those things, like therapist for the director and producer, you're sort of like always in the middle of the producers and the production line producers and the directors about the director wants this and the producers want this, and you've got to sort of meet in the middle somewhere, and you've got to play Switzerland the whole time, which is always really, really difficult. So there's a lot of that, as well as the creative stuff. I find that is what takes up a lot of time as well.
Just probably the same sort of stuff about like creating an image on the screen and working with different departments like production design and stuff like that. And your director, of course. So yeah.
I have to say, as it's coming back this way, I do know you all. I've worked with you all, and the common theme is calmness. Is that kind of Zen energy. So I would say your role of therapist and comedian and being able to navigate all the heads of departments. Calmness is very crucial, would you say, Jade?
Yeah, you've got to have some strategies in place to deal with the stress and people coming to you with all different questions, and you've got comms on and, trying to manage all these things. So yeah, definitely like pacing yourself and really taking a moment to think things through.
Well, it's said, indie filmmakers kind of tend to wear a lot of different hats. Once it gets to the professional stuff that you guys are working on, is there a clear line between the director's vision and the DOP's vision, or is it always a collaboration? Because, yeah, great, yeah.
It's an interesting question because, some directors like Steven Spielberg will be like, put the camera here and make it a 50mm on a truck going. It's going to be a definite, they'll have a complete vision. And then even like Lord of the Rings, they would have had a completely storyboarded down to every shot. So, it's kind of more fun when you're obviously a creative collaborator to work with directors who are more flexible, and they'll let you kind of like, what do you think? What do you reckon? How do we cover this shot? So it just when you're able to kind of bring, let's track and go slowly, and so you end up in the director's seat a little bit as far as the DP is concerned, because it's obviously camera orientated and how it's going to cut together and all that. So the experiences that I've had have always been more enjoyable when I'm working with directors who go, we want to give you some strings, and make it fun.
Yeah, I would agree. I was just thinking of when I was working on Invisible Boys with the director Nick Verso. He has an incredible way of, he's incredibly well planned and knows exactly what he wants to do in each scene and the coverage. He'll leave the lighting generally up to me, but give me a general idea. But he'll always also make my ideas feel like, that they're worthy and they're included. But they're often his ideas anyway, so he's got a masterful way of sort of convincing me that it was my idea and in fact it was his idea. So there's
He's treating you like an actor, is he?
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's what we are.
Yeah, good idea, yeah. Great idea, let's do that.
Yeah, well, on the flip side, you have other people who've got very clear ideas of what they want, and it's your job to sort of, I sort of go back to work with them. Craig is a very, very specific director, and he knows exactly his lenses, who he wants to be. But in pulling that apart, you realise that what he's not interested in is the foundational aspect of that, of getting the right lenses to achieve what he wants, and to pull that apart from a point of view of building a lookbook and then working down and finding out going down that path of finding what he wants and reconciling it with you, and then realising that he needs a safety in that he's got these great ideas and they're out there, but sometimes they don't work. And he, what I did one time I was traumatised. I came up to the first job I'd done with him, and I went, I don't even know if he liked what I've done or anything. And so I actually got him to write me a reference, and that was very clarifying. And he basically said, next there with the plan B, but my plan A sucks, So it's that idea that you understand that you facilitate all that underpinning in the same way that you build a house and you make sure the foundations are there. But that gives the strength to the director to know that they can go for something, knowing that you can catch them or you can help them build the house further.
Beautiful. And you've all got your own unique style, I would say. How did you find or come to your style, and at what point of the process do you bring that in to the table?
I think style takes, many years to kind of develop, as far as because you have to basically come up with your own game plans, every time you do something, almost sometimes. You watch people do things, but it's not until you've been put in the same situation where it's like, okay, these actors are going to come here, what are you going to do, sort of thing, So it takes quite a long, for me it's taken, I spent a long time developing the style, I guess, and getting to know what I liked and what I didn't like and that sort of thing. So what was the question again?
What is your style? How do you define your style?
No idea. But it does change a lot. I think, I like to kind of diversify really. I don't want to go, this is my style, so it's like,
And you would change from project to project then?
I'd like to, yeah. That's, if you can, it's like you still sort of slot into things that the way you like things, I guess, and the way you do things, and it's a bit hard to get away from those type of habits. But yeah, in general, it's like, this is going to be way more sort of rom-com. So let's, make this nice and flat, and let's, and then next time you go, I want to make a horror, which is really dark, so.
I think I'm still very, very early in my career, so I haven't had a chance to even think about style. Also, budget often doesn't allow for me, and time doesn't allow for me to think of style. So it's very much just getting a nice image a lot of the time and just working with what you have. But I hope to one day in the future develop a much more clearer style. Yeah.
You all come to the table though with your own shot list in mind, whether or not you get to use your shot list or not. The last feature film I worked on in Melbourne, the DOP was running around with his own shot list on a massive sketchbook that he had done, and just in case he got a chance to use it or look at it, but I mean it hardly ever got open and it was a lame joke. But do you all come to a shoot with your own shot list in mind as well, or storyboard in mind, or is that you leave it up to the director and then you look at the storyboard and see what you can bring to the table?
I've always, when I read the script for the first time, I just try to know nothing about it from the director and just read it and, see if it's a good yarn or whatever. But, I just make little notes, if something just pops into my mind, so I can go, this is, and then when you chat to them. But I always try and bring those initial thoughts to the table or to the shoot at some point, even if the director's got a really clear idea. It's always, I've always got to, I feel like if the director had a snooze for a while, it'd be all right. It would still get by, potentially. So meaning that, I feel confident or prepared enough, that we still get something that the way that I imagine as well, which is usually similar to the way the director imagines.
So, for example, Jason, if you will, I just watched Invisible Boys, beautiful, and when I'm thinking of Invisible Boys, I can see, and I'm really going to show my ignorance now in terms of language, I didn't go to film school, but I can see a lot of daylight, I can see a lot of grit, a lot of kind of warmth and some neons in my mind when I'm looking at it. Is that coming from you?
Yes, and also coming from the lookbook that Nick sent a whole lot of images to me very early on, and just tonal images of each sort of episode basically, and said this episode or this location should feel like this, and this location should. So a lot of that came from that, and they just implant in your brain, and then when you turn up at that place and do the recce, it's like, okay, well, I tend to like from a very naturalistic point of view anyway. Like I just try and go for truthfulness in whatever I do. But that's just me. It's just like I have trouble inventing something that looks completely, fantastical or unrealistic. But it's
Were you under time constraints on that show?
yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So exactly. Yeah, so that's right. I suppose a lot of it's driven by practicality of the time, and we were shooting between 7 and 12 and 30 minutes a day, I think, roughly, on that. So you've got to invent lighting. You've got to light 360 for a start, and you've got to invent ways that you can just get to it.
Yeah, thank you. Talking about lighting 360, Nick, you had an interesting story about how you lit last Kings Across. That's not it. Is it Joe? Your Joe documentary.
Last King, Queensland.
Last King, Queensland. Sorry, not Last Kings Across. Completely different show. You had time constraints and troubles and a location that you had to work with. Can you talk about that a little bit?
For the
For the theatre?
Yeah. So the premise of Joe is, I don't know how many people remember Joe about but I remember it quite well, sadly. So the director had this idea that in the last 3 days of Joe's 19-year tenancy in George Street, he locked himself in a room very down for style, and had some of his ministers knock into him, hey Joe, come out. So it's over. And so Trev proposed that alongside our interviews and a lot of stock footage and stuff like that, stylized interviews done in the theatre space in black and white, we would then have Richard Roxburgh as Joe at a desk with a lamp, and it was really simple propping there on a black stage against black chairs, which just puts the fear engineers in trouble really. And so I, we really tried to pull this apart and try to find out from Craig, what's justification for this? Is this a day? Are we going to transition 3 times a day? Are we going to? And he's like, no, it's a theatre. We can do nothing. So it was a little bit of rock and roll. But what I did is we built a light box on top that we could then, propose this idea with this limited budget we had for that scene. That was a like fluoro style thing, and it was funny because I said very early, well, yeah, it could be like fluoros, and we could bring in other sources that was daylight and all these pieces, and then the mentions. No, I'm thinking completely different. We went to all these Nick Cave references that Andrew Dominic had done, and breeze lights and beam projectors and all sorts of stuff, and then eventually back where we started. But yeah, it just gave us the flexibility there. We had an idea that we were going to put all these lights to light the chairs, and then of course in there, no light, how it goes off the black. Ended up with sort of had to put, because I knew there was always going to be this issue of black on black, and so we put a whole bunch of profiles, spots all around, very narrow profile spots around the room. And then Trev then just sprung on me and said, let's do a complete 360 around the room. And by the way, we've got about 5 minutes to do it. So it was like, okay, dim that down, dim that up, put that over there, and poor old Tim sitting there and our lighting controller. And he was basically, we'll give me a few seconds and I'll program. And so literally he was just queuing stuff as we went through, and had this Western dolly, which is a very simple dolly, and stabilised on top of that, the 360. So again, it was sort of that idea that I knew that those profiles were going to come in handy, and they certainly did. And it was about, allowing that 360 ability, but I didn't think we'd use everything in the house doing it. So I think it kind of worked.
It's out there, have a look at it. Just on that, after your answer, Dan, I want to hear it, but that brings us to the next one. What do you want from a great gaffer? Because you're all talking about working with light and what you all need out of a great gaffer. But no, Dan, please tell me.
I was only going to tell a story about the fact that I went to India for 3 years doing Bollywood films.
Hey, that's completely
I did a
different.
feature film that went for 9 months. It was like just on.
Whoa, that's a budget we all dream
Just
of.
on and on and on. It was like music videos after music videos, traveling around the country. Just after 6 months, we'd only done music videos basically all the time.
That's
But that's your jam,
So it's
right?
like one shoot you gotta walk in and shoot it all in like an hour, and other times you're like, when is this gonna end?
Yeah, 9 months.
Gaffers, yeah. It's good gaffers.
Gaffers, yeah.
Hollywood. They were great guys, like the whole team were amazing, like, you just had to, you got what you needed basically, I trained them up eventually, because, when I first got there, the Indians, they're just under a whole hysteria vibe when you've been working there, because the DBs would yell at them non-stop, and so they would hate their life. And eventually I just sort of trained them after months and months to say, no, when I need something quick, you don't have to all freak out. We'll just grab the light, run over there, put it up, So eventually, they all calmed down, and after about a year, people would walk on the set and they go, what the hell's with this set? Like, everyone's laughing and having a great time, chilling out.
Yeah, it's chill.
My experience, I don't know what yours is when I was there, they're much more, this is a lamp and you'll put it there, rather than this, what we expect from the gaffer, which is a very collaborative sort of thing. So I found that I had 15 light men, they call them light men, and I was literally have to go around and say, can you put that on the stand with a set of bundles with a blue shot? And then you go to the next guy and go, I like that with a red shot. And then I go down there and the director's going, I need you over here. Well, I just need to get through the lightning. So it was a very different experience.
Well, I had a personal assistant guy who would, because I couldn't speak tunnels, so.
So they had it's
I just stand there, and then walk off and be like.
Nice.
I mean, it's gaffers wise, depends on the show, how much time you got, I guess.
Would you prefer, yeah, I guess
Some
budget
shows it's gonna
and
be,
time?
you wouldn't be bringing the gaffer truck in on the last job, so I don't know. Wouldn't have time to unpack it.
No, that's right, yeah.
No, you tell us.
Oh, I just did a 7-day feature a few weeks ago, and that was interesting. No, it was good, it was good. It was, learned a lot from it, learned how I like to work and like what I'm comfortable with. And yeah, my gaffer was amazing, good energy, because you really need good energy when you're doing stuff like this with very minimal time to set up. And someone that can kind of I love someone that brings a lot to the table in terms of creativity, because, you can't always be thinking of everything all the time. And so it's really great to pass on some of that to someone else to kind of take off you a little bit. And so, yeah, I've been working with the same person for the past few projects now, and his name's Thorn, and he's amazing. Yeah.
I primarily look in all my crew for personality first, like number one, over experience by far. Like experience, it's okay, but personality, because you're spending time with them and they've just got to be a nice person and easy to get along with from my perspective. And I tend to find people, I just tend to sort of work with them over and over again. It's to build that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like gaffers that sort of join the dots is what for you, because they're kind of on the same page with continuity and that sort of thing. They'll be thinking as well, just so that you also can focus a bit more on what's going on. Because DPing is obviously like wrangling, like you said, the director and actors and the whole deal. So you got a lot of stuff on your plate. And
So you like to have
like, can you get that gel on that backline? So yeah, just put the gel in.
Yeah, or can I add a bit of fill here, or do you want some, to suggest things to you would be a preference, yeah? And is it the same goes with production designers, because that's very much a part of your role as well, getting across what you want on the shot? How do you work with a production designer?
I don't think I've had the opportunity to.
Really?
Yeah, no. Well, I've only been there when we built it and stuff, but nobody's actually invited me to that party.
Really?
No, so it was funny, because I've got a friend who's in production. He must know this person. No, I don't. You must know. Usually they're come and they're gone by the time we get there, really. All the time. So unless you have a director who allows you to bring that, in pre-production, bring that together, the projects I've been involved, I haven't had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, so I like to be involved as early as possible with the production designer. What ends up happening though, like in Invisible Boys, we had 3 months of pre or whatever it was, you end up just not really knuckling down and having those conversations because other things sort of get in the way, like citation surveys or whatever it is. So Maddie Crocker was the production designer on Invisible Boys, and we did chat, and there were chats about crucial things, but we always wish we'd had more time. But when we do chat, you know, it's like coloured wall colours or whatever, or just tonal things like that generally, you know, and or problem solving, like, oh shit, there's this wall in the background that's white. Can you do something with that? You know, and then Maddie will be like, okay, go put up some material and drape the curtain across there or something or other. So lots of that sort of practical stuff. Yeah.
I love chatting to production design because I'm very much into that space. And a lot of it doesn't really happen in pre-production too much for me, but like I love developing lookbooks and doing mind maps, so that kind of informs everyone. You know, if we need like a certain like lamp or like, you know, curtains for this space, kind of having that conversation, it like starts that conversation. Color palette and everything. I do love to have a few Zoom calls with them to like go through some of the key elements. So yeah.
I saw your lookbook for that series that you shot, and it was very impressive. I felt like I had to up my game. I really do. It was very impressive, like all broken down into.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Well, like pre-production is probably my favorite part of the process. Like aside from shooting, obviously, because I love to shoot, but that's where like creativity gets to really like go wild. And obviously, not every project allows for that, but when you do, I really have fun with that. Yeah.
Just on that, one of the things I've learned over the last couple of projects is sharing that lookbook far further than I ever have. And so I now get everybody in the lookbook. Whereas previously it was sort of director thing. I found myself on set with a drone operator that, you know, on this guy, and I realised that shot, he goes, I did the lookbook. And then, you know, I'd given the same book to Chris Anderson, he said nothing for weeks. And then we're doing something, and I said, this is really coming out, it's really, and he turned to me and said, I like the lookbook. So, you know, whether you actually have those active discussions or not, it's really important to go through the process yourself, but also you don't realise how much that empowers people to creatively engage with the project. So,
Okay, great.
Just quickly, also mud maps, I share them with the sound recorders as well, so they know like the boom operator where to stand and everything. That's a really, someone came up to me and was like, that's so helpful. So even if it changes on the day, they kind of get an idea of where that like 180 line kind of lies and what you're going to be shooting. So yeah.
Awesome. Let's go, before we break, get out to the Q&A. Tips for emerging video pieces. If you were starting out in the industry, what would you say? That's a great tip. Are there any others?
Probably like reaching out to people in terms of like mentorship and advice and everything. It's been so helpful having some great people to like lean on for ideas and and like coming up with people. Like I shoot a lot with my brother, he's a director, so we kind of work together a lot and just shooting as much as possible. Like, even stuff that you're questioning, just getting as much shooting experience as possible is probably the number one tip.
I reckon, shooting as much as you can, saying yes to everything, and getting those little teams together that, you know, like solidifying those teams or finding those tribe, I suppose, tribes, you know, so you can sort of kind of go on that journey together and encourage each other to develop projects and things like that.
I think one of the biggest things that I did early on in my career was really just, as someone told me once, was like, you should edit your own footage, and it's a big thing because you go out and film something and then you'll have this phone call from the editor going, what the hell is this? You know, and so, you know, I quickly became an editor and I've been editing ever since, and, you know, it's always, it's so important to have an editing hat on, because when you're directors obviously have an editing hat on, so they should be keeping their eye out, going, hang on, we need a bit more there, like some more reaction, or let's slow that down, blah, 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 you know, because like in the edit, you want to go, we need to be able to cut that together. But when you're shooting and director photography though, and getting used to, you know, just covering something in a certain way, you know, you really start to pick up on where you can totally mess it up if you don't, you know, if you're not covering, and you can get stitched up because continuity won't work there, and you know, if you don't have there's all these little things you can get trapped, and editing just makes you realise how terrible your camera work was.
I spent 10 years sort of traveling the world and cutting what I shot, and ended up getting a lot of jobs from editors simply because they said that yeah, again, what I shot was usable. It wasn't too much. I did a whole series on stage on native people who were looking at tribal medicine, but that's all over the world, and that was something people had never seen television before. So it was this. We were given 12, 40-minute. I think at that stage, we had 12, 40 minutes. We had to get a 30-minute program, which is really, for a documentary, is really, really hard. So we didn't shoot anything more, but I knew what we needed to get, and so out of that, the editor then recommended me for a whole bunch of jobs. So that was really important. People say that, and I said, and people go, oh, because the way you shoot is really, I mean, doesn't everybody, and you realise that everybody doesn't shoot like that. It's very hard to be objective about what you're doing, and then realise what things you bring to the job. But I would also say, add to what these guys have said about is not only shoot more stuff, but work more widely. Like so what I learned from my beginnings in the industry was that I worked with a few people a lot. And so I watched some of the people coming up through the ranks. If you go through the camera department and rise up through the, truck loader, second, first operator, you come across a whole bunch of people and you create a network so when you're ready to step up, you know a whole bunch of people, know a lot of producers, know a lot of line producers, all those different pieces. I knew none of those people. And so I've probably, in changing gear, I've had to work a lot harder to get the jobs than a lot of other people who have naturally come across people. I suppose, JC, you would work a lot of commercials, but come across a lot of directors through that and a lot of different producers. And so, so when I do a documentary, a long documentary, there's probably 2 or 3 of those a year. And so that's a lot less people to come across. And that's hard. But I would say get out there and introduce yourself to a whole bunch of people and have a lot of official dates.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? Yeah, great, Claire. Jules, can you help me with the mic? Sure.
Hi, my name is Claire Pickering. I started as an actor and wasn't getting any work, so I became a filmmaker to cast myself in films. I love the collaborative process with cinematographers because I don't know what I'm doing. So my question to each of you is, what are 1 or 2 things that you would like an indie director to help you improve your job? What is something they could give you or prepare for you that perhaps if you work with people who aren't quite as prepared as possible?
I'd say trust first. My gripe is obviously, another gripe I have is on production, not trusting the cinematographer. So when I ask for things, I've already gone through the process of distilling the film, understanding how much time you've got, what the requirements are, and where the pinch points are of what we need to spend on something to actually guarantee something to happen and it's expedient along the line. And so sometimes there's a bit of pushback on production, you're doing this and that's very expensive and stuff like that. And then you spend a lot of time then going through the justification process. That, look, we're aiming for a great film. I'm on your side. The reason I'm doing the job is I really like the script, I really like the director, I really like how it's going. But let's not waste our time because I'm on your team. So as long as we understand that, then we can work forward in an area of trust, and then we can start, once it's established, then we can start thinking about the film we're going to make.
Yeah, that's right. And, also it's like, cinematographers have spent a lot of years, filming things and covering things in a drama sense, storytelling sense and everything. And so, I think it's great when, that's the thing, like directors come along who might not have that type of experience, but it's like driving the emotion for the script through the story, through the camera, you know what I mean? And I think that creative element is really what brings something to life, because rather than just coverage, like TV shows, like they walk in, it's a wide and close up, you know what I mean? Like we've all done that, but it's like what's going to be interesting about this that we can then pounce on a moment that's going to make that something interesting, and that's really you want to bring that as much as possible, because it's going to really give it a difference from just straight old, coverage type thing. So this is it's a big thing that I like to see in films.
And I think making your team feel like they're contributing and are actual equal collaborator, not like I'm the director and everyone's going to do what I want. I guess it's, people come onto projects for their own personal reasons. So, and it's usually because there's a creative, involvement that they want in it. So I suppose empowering people around you to feel like they really are contributing to the project that and what they're reading, I guess.
I like a director that knows what they want, because it's kind of like, with digital, we get to shoot as much as possible, but back in film days, you don't have that luxury. So trying to treat every frame like it's film, and like every frame has a purpose, like not shooting just coverage for the sake of coverage. That's probably my number one, like, not dislike or anything, but I just really enjoy like designing a frame for a purpose, and that the director that understands that is really great to work with.
Great question. I will say that Claire's film played in the Australian session, Hourglass Parlour, if anyone saw that. It's all the way from Melbourne. Any more questions from the audience? Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Federico. Yeah, I was thinking probably how, as a cinematographer, you guys approach the material, because you were talking about like through the page, you just look at the script, and then you go ahead and think about also as well if the person is nice or you have a good understanding. But in regards of dressing the material, you go and think about, oh, I can collaborate with this guy through composition or through symmetry, or you go through lighting, or what is the creative process that you go through when you get to the set and you start shooting?
Once you get the script, once
Once you get into the set, after the
Once you
script
set.
and after knowing the person, when you're there, sometimes I've seen cinematographers that I work with, they just pure on lighting, and there's some other ones that just one composition, and sometimes our visions align and we can work. I'm curious about how you approach that.
I can probably answer this question. So, because when you walk on a set and you've already had all this pre-production and blah, 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 and then all of a sudden you get an actor who comes along and they go, well, I want to stand over there. I don't feel comfortable over there. So it's like, it's a whole, so it's what the way that I'm answering the question is like, it comes down in priorities. So you'll have, so obviously the relationship between the director and the actors is number one. So, like they're talking, how's this going to bond, where's this working for them, because it's not our job to go, we want them to stand here because that's where my light is and blah, 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 like that's what we want them to do, but that's not helping their performance, so, so it kind of goes down in priorities as far as I'm concerned, like it's like, work with actors, directors, come up with a plan, let's see how this feels nice, and then you get to have your own little luxury moments of lighting if you get 10 minutes before the shot.
I think sometimes I find, that's so true, because all the planning that you do and the alignment you have with the director and the production designer can go out the window when either the location doesn't turn out the way you want it to, or you have to move locations or whatever. So all the best intentions are there, and then you just got to get it and do that quickly. But I think a lot of that creative stuff is worked out visually beforehand, and you're on the same page before you get on set, so that when you do get on set, it's just implicit trust, so you don't have to really necessarily discuss it so much. You're just focusing on, directors focusing on the actors and performance and that relationship, and then, cinematographers focusing on the lighting and managing the camera department and facilitating what's needed. But I guess you just remind each other, you look at rushes or whatever, and you remind each other if that's the direction you're still going, as you go, and it's ongoing discussion. If it's a longer project, you go, oh, this is not, whatever, but usually it's all in pre, and you sort of, by the time you get to set, it should just all be okay, and if it's not, then it's awful.
But it never is the way you want it to go on set. You've got the times and the budget, and then you're losing light, and the sun's coming from the wrong direction, someone has an accident, dead.
It's a really strange balance of organic plus and contrived. That's the way I see it, because it's like contrived has its place, like Wes Anderson, but then also One Battle After Another was very much run around with camera, so there's different ways of approaching.
Yeah, I agree with these guys as far as it should be there in pre, but you know, actors and all the other things that interact with you on the day, that's your opportunity to sort of not change tack, but actually add some of the seasoning to it, I guess. You get the opportunity, you know, something might be a little bit tighter or a bit more, you know, what I see a lot in young cinematographers is this idea that they have a lookbook and that there's what the shooting is like that. And so I I do a little bit of teaching engagement. And I sort of say, well, really, it's about finding out those things and then finding out the commonality of those things, then breaking that down into the testing period. And then, so, yeah, you've gone through a fairly exhaustive thing, and then you've thrown some wild cards in there, and you've screened it, and the director's a little bit more like this, a bit more like that. And so that iterative process should have you fairly clearly defined as where you're going. But then, of course, yeah, as Dan says, you put an actor in the room. Well, it's sort of like this idea that, you know, I always, as some people say, what focal length do you shoot something at? And I find that proximity is really important to me. So we're always looking at styles. I wouldn't like to think of a style, but I've got thumbprints or fingerprints that are left on everything. That's just preference, I suppose. Preference that comes with different genres. And so in that context, then those comes forward. You know, you find that I was thrown a project that they said this person's never acted on the camera, so therefore you go, well, okay, we need to be a little bit further back, or we want to be with this character. And so it's only when you start doing that little dance with them to understand where the camera needs to be. And when you get on set and you talk about the priorities like, it's just a matter of getting the machine going. So I said anything that's outside, you get people to put things on the stands because they're going to be big slides of the day. So then it's just a matter of getting the machine moving while you're settling into that. What I do tend to do is I get my lookbook and I actually put it on my phone, and as I'm on my way, when I've arrived or I'm sitting at breakfast or something, I'll literally just flip through those photos. And that's the last time I actually look at those photos. And really to just embed some idea of why I thought we were going in the direction we were going. And in fact, some of those things, what was really interesting on Learning Blackhand, I showed a lot of photographic references, and I just found this sketch of a guy in the field, and it was really funny. He just lit up and said, "Where'd you get that from?" And it was really interesting to take something that was completely, we're so used to getting looks out of photographic references. This just had the right feeling for it, and so it was interesting to step outside that box a little. I don't even know where I found it. It was some random paint.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
There's a question here.
Hi, I'm one of those actors.
Yeah.
I'm not saying bad things. We're accommodating you.
I actually was lucky enough when I started that I got to work behind the scenes a lot more to start my career, and then sort of that I worked a lot across commercials and multi-camera sitcom sort of stuff. What I wanted to know is, with the change in technology and the accessibility of it for young and old, how much is that interfering with your creative process and what you're working on Monarch at the moment? How does it affect your process and all of those elements of creativity that had to be created artificially now are created artificially? So how does it affect your process, and how do you feel like it's adding or subtracting from your experience?
Talking about AI and specifically?
Not specifically AI, but what can be done now on with CGI and things like that. The whole technology, the way it's sort of become more intrusive, I suppose.
Well, as thank you, know that there's an explosion behind you, you move more quickly, don't you?
Yeah.
So I suppose that's about where, you know, there's obviously set guns. I don't think I've been on set for a long time where there's been actual guns being fired anymore. There's still things being blown up. Yeah, so I suspect some of that will come down the cost. Yeah, I sort of see this idea that it's a great time, much as I'm not using AI for anything myself, and not just because I don't need anything like that. I don't have an objection to where it may go creatively. But I see all these independent directors playing around in the periphery of that. I haven't seen anything that moves me, certainly in these shorts and features. But there is some scope, and I think there's a really exciting place there where we might be able to do genres that we weren't able to do just, you know, basically the idea of world extension. But I think it needs to be meted with the idea that, you know, we still need to feel things, and so therefore that, I think we'll find that space, hopefully, if we can keep enough of the tech bros out of the picture, enough to take the world over. I think there's some opportunities for there to do interesting things.
I really like the idea of emerging technology and how, like, all through my career, I've always been at the point. My dad was a scientist at CSIRO for 30 years, a computer scientist, and so I just naturally was drawn towards technology, I suppose, and how but not for the sake of it, but how it can benefit you. So I've been sort of working for the last 6 months, just for free, exploring with a visual effects place, actually a previous place down the Gold Coast, Oxy, trying to find a hybrid workflow with AI and how it can, how I can take advantage of it. And it is mind-blowingly good. And not to replace, I'm looking at a hybrid way of working. So you're still, creating 90% of the film is shot for real. It's like you can't fly to New York, especially for Australian films, you can replace the background, and it's not replacing visual effects either. It's just a different tool. So they just pivot to that area, but it's a lot faster and it's a lot more affordable, and it suddenly emboldens you to tell these stories that you couldn't tell because of cost. So I see huge potential in it, and it's very, very exciting, I reckon. And just quickly, there was a film I shot called Posthumous, which has it's just been locked and finished like 2 days ago, for Josh Tanner, the director friend of mine, and so it'll be out in the world in September. And we had to find a solution for these windows on a set. So we shot it all on sets, and we have these windows. And one of my pet hates was, the discussion around, let's just put some pot plants out there and burn it out and make it white out there. It's like, no, that always looks like some pot plants and a burnt out white. It looks shit. So it's like, well, I want to do something better than that. And there was blue screen. It's like, well, then you got all the blue spill that comes in and that. So I got these cheap, there's volumes, LED volumes. We couldn't afford those, but I went to a AV house and basically got these 2 meter by 2 meter outdoor road signs, basically, because the pixels on them are so huge. And they've got video. And I just put them on a platform behind the windows. We had two, we could only put 2 of them. And I just had my laptop plugged into them, and I went and shot a whole lot of plates at a location where the actual house was, and then just piped them through that. And then, the resolution was shit, so we put some, the production designer put some diffused kind of sticky material on the window that just diffused it enough to blur it so that you couldn't see the pixels, and then we put some curtains on it. And so we've got moving cars out there, and it looks great. I've got to say, it does look great, and it's the best solution, and it was really cheap, and it was technology that was driving that. So,
I mean, I haven't really shot much with VFX or anything. I mean, I did a little short film in the beginning of this year with claymation, which was my first one. I used to do stop motion animation when I was starting out, and I swore I would never go back to it. But it's just like superimposing claymation, and it was a whole new world for me because I've seconded on a lot of projects where we are shooting on green screen and stuff like that. And it's just trying to wrap my head around it. So it was really great to learn that experience. So yeah, I still can't wrap my head around it most of the time. But
These days I'm directing now, so I've got a film that's coming up, and so being top tier creative as far as like being able to come up with ideas and put things into action is it's definitely an amazing game changer as far as well, we couldn't afford to do a car stunt where the car's going to flip over and blow up or blah blah blah, whereas now you're like, oh, okay, that's actually looks pretty decent. So it's basically opening up the ideas of what you can do, and it's bringing down the cost of what and the time that's going to take to do it. So now, I can look at making a $2 million film and make it look like it's, $10 million because it's got all these great, cool things in it. So it's definitely going to work as a benefit from that point of view.
We've got time for another question. Yeah. One, last one. And then you might find them at the bar after.
Hi there, my name is Xander Barlow. I had, in terms of all of you as cinematographers and also photographers, and having in this profession, obviously a passion for what you do, and I was wondering in what ways, either lately or generally in personal projects or projects with other directors or the films you work on, how that passion manifests itself for you currently or recently, and how maybe how a certain shot turned out or how a certain collaboration turned out or anything like that, that kind of reignites your passion for why you do what you do and explores that as a creator.
It's a good question because you probably motivation is hard. It's a hard slog. So how do you say passion?
It's very interesting because just recently I've gone back to watch a whole bunch of international cinema because I've watched a lot of Iranian stuff, and one of the directors, I shouldn't remember his name, but the film called Circle, and yeah. So some of his films, he made one about a young girl who wants a goldfish, and the entire film is about her going and losing money for the goldfish, and others is expecting change. I said, just go to the film office and say, you want to make a film, a feature film about goldfish and all the film. Probably get money. But it was really interesting because I'd seen, before that, a few weeks before that, I watched Bicycle Thieves again. And then I thought, oh, this is great because it's about a guy who loses his bike. He spends the entire film getting his bike back. And the shame he wears, he turns into the thief himself in the end. And I went, it's amazing. And then I was listening to a podcast and they said they interviewed the guy, the Iranian guy, and he said, what I've been really been inspired by is a bicycle thief. And I said, well, no, this is not, yeah. So it's what inspires me when I look at stuff like that. I go, look, that is such simple narrative, such simply done. Because my thing is all about I can't stand conceit in a conceit. Everything for me needs to come from an organic place where I can believe the world exists. Otherwise, I don't feel I've got anything much to contribute to it. And it's because I come from a documentary background. But yeah, so it's the fact that someone can tell an engaging film with such a simple story and simple resources and just that simplicity, it's just, that's when it energizes me. And I go, look, then I look at a big tent pole and I go, look, I saw one the other day and I just went for $300 million, and I didn't like it at all. And I thought, well, that's interesting, something. And so yeah, so what inspires me is that when I look at the amount of people I talk to about wanting to do their feature and they're talking about all these millions of dollars that they need to raise some money, I go, no, we just think about the story, and I'm always trying to push and energize them to do stuff and try to move them, but it's very difficult because they're worn down by the whole idea that you need all these millions of dollars and it's such a big canvas. So yeah, simple.
I don't know about so much from a cinematography point of view, but well, just on that, I think you get excited when you're on a film and just you feel that buzz when everyone's going, "This is amazing!" The actors come running over, "How was that?" So they're the moments to live for, and you obviously you want to be going into a project feeling that way when it's going to start. You're like, "This is going to be fun," and like you can sink your teeth in and that sort of thing. But for me, it's like because I'm directing, it's like I'm writing the script and. So there's all those different parts that I get really inspired about doing, like music and editing, and then effects and all, like all of it. So it's all and work with actors. Every part of it's always giving me a buzz. So I've got lots to keep me alive.
Yeah, I think it's watching other films sometimes. When you go through a slump and you sort of see a film that was really great, and I've got to say I loved Obsession and Backrooms. I thought that for me they were inspiring. Like made, at least Obsession was made with a reasonably small budget, and it looks amazing, and it's a really masterfully made movie, I reckon. And so, I find that sort of thing inspiring as well.
Yeah, all that. I mean, watching films obviously, and talking to people that are really passionate about what they do. But I find that kind of for me, what resets my energy. I mean, I love to travel and to see different parts of the world that I haven't seen before, and so taking a camera and seeing those parts of the world and getting that inspiration again is really exciting and kind of resets my energy a little bit. And yeah, I love it.
Well, that's all we have time for. Please thank our very special guest. Thank you so much everyone for being here. We're going to close the cinema from about 2 to 2:30, get ready for the next session. Please do check out the courtyard, mingle, exchange details, introduce yourself, and there is another session playing downstairs. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.